Hello again, you sick, twisted weather freaks, and welcome to another fun-filled, action-packed, and intellectually stimulating edition of This Week in Weather. I'm your host and meteorologist, DT, from weatherist.com, the commander of confusion, the colonel of catastrophe, the captain of chaos. We have a lot to talk about this week in weather, February 7th, 2016, Super Bowl Sunday, so let's get right to it. A lot of weather systems here to watch, but none of them are overpoweringly threatening right now. I suppose the one from February 15, 16 is the big one, but even that's got some problems with it. So let's get right to it here. We'll start up and taking a look at our topics. And the topics here we're going to be, of course, we'll talk about the current system moving off the North Carolina coast. The one from February 9th, which is not going to be a big deal. The Arctic blast, which comes in February 9th to the 10th, and then which probably lasts till the 15th or 16th. And then the actual event for February 15, 16, and then one for late February and March, the pattern for there. So let's get right to it. Now, this is our latest surface map, and you can see some important features here. Here's the storm itself, as you can see looking right here in this whole area. And then, of course, here's our low pressure area. And this is the first front. Here's the Arctic front right in here coming southward. So this system, if these two things were to meet, that would be great for a big snowstorm if you like that sort of thing. But that's not what's going to happen here. And we can see that by taking a look at our next images. This is the latest satellite picture from this system. You can see very impressive here. Definitely lots of things to talk about in the satellite picture. You could spend an hour on this baby. Here's your cold front in here. Here's your low pressure area in this area. Here's your wrap around. The conveyor belts are coming in this way. The precipitation. As soon as you go to look at Pittsburgh here, Roanoke, it's almost clear. Western North Carolina, it's completely clear. So, and there's the other cold front coming in that way. So this cold front is going to drive the system off the coast, and they're not going to merge or meet or phase or anything like that. And we can see this. Now, this is yesterday's NAM. This is the Saturday afternoon run. And you can see, I'm posting this from yesterday's run. There's a lot of consistency here. You can see this big system just moving straight off the coast, very nicely developed right here. And you can see it. There you go. And the system goes boom out like this. And there's the Clipper low, the Arctic front coming eastward. So if this would come due north, this would be a blizzard for everybody. I mean, it's a pretty impressive system. There's no two ways about that. But it's not coming north. And we can see why. Now, this is the NAM from Saturday evening, the 18Z NAM. And you can see here the upper low over Florida. Let me highlight that so you can see exactly what I'm talking about here. Here's the feature right here, very nicely. You can see that. And then, of course, here is the monster trough coming in this way, dropping very strongly in that way. So this is the trough axis right here, and that's headed towards the east and to the south. So this is going to drive this feature off the coast. So now if this were to drop all the way south like that, it might capture it, but that's not what's going to happen. So, and there was some concern that might happen early in the week, but we can clearly see that. Now this is the NAM valid for tomorrow morning at 2 a.m. There's the trough coming in the Midwest. As you can see, it needs to drop down to Louisiana, not moving through the Midwest. So as a result, it's not going to do that. And in fact, this is what happened back in the January 2000 snowstorm, January 25. This trough came much further south and it pulled the system inland, because as this comes south, the ridge comes up and that pulls the system inland. But that's not what's going to happen. So this is a bye-bye. This is a non-event system. And we can see this is the NAM here again, Saturday afternoon, Saturday evening, taking the system out to sea. And then we can see the Arctic front coming in with the system for February 9th. Now here's there's a little bit of a low right here, with the Arctic front coming in this way. And here it is like this in the Arctic front, and several waves of Arctic air coming southward, you can see, with a strong northwest winds. This system is gone. The problem is this system here is too close to this one, and as a result they can't really develop. And we'll see that here in a second. So I'm not very this is the upper air map now for Monday afternoon. You can see the trough axis is very deep, it's very powerful. Obviously, if we had if there was not a system here, then we would have some sort of bigger low developing here, but we don't have that. These two systems are too close to each other, and as a result, even though you've got a very big ridge developing right here, you can see the ridge pushing up this way, and this is dropping southward, you have two systems too close to each other. So it's always something, and sometimes you get winters like that. Now let's take a look at February 9th. Now this is the European model, the Sunday afternoon European model, and look, it's got a nice looking low there. You say, wow, that looks like a snowstorm. Well, no, it's not a snowstorm, because the system develops too far off the coast. First, you also have a primary low right here. So there is that. And then you have the secondary low right here. But again, when you take a look at the precipitation shield, all of it's developing here and heading out this way. And there's the other low here. So the trough is very deep, a lot of very strong north winds howling in the Arctic air, but the system develops too late and to affect most of the mid-Atlantic. It might affect the New England because they stick out here a little bit. Now this is the European ensemble, Val at the same time. Again, 48 hours Tuesday morning. The low is almost in the exact same position. Let me move this here. You can see it. We go back and forth here. There's the operational. There's the European ensemble. No difference. No difference of any appreciable difference at all, as you can see. And the low is way far off the coast. If we look at the precipitation shield for Tuesday afternoon, this is the European, the operational run. We can use the ensemble if we want to, but it's the same thing as the operational run. And where is the low? Well, we can see the low very nicely. Let me get my marker here. Right here, there's the low, and all the precipitation's over out to sea. So there'll be some snow in some areas, maybe Washington, Charlottesville, up towards Philly, Atlantic City, Baltimore, that sort of thing, Harrisburg, but it's not a big deal. They might get some snow in southern New England, but even there, we're not looking at a big amount of snow here, and the models clearly show that. So there's not a lot of reason to get excited about this event. Now, beyond this one, this is the European model for a little further out. You can see the next Arctic front, the next Clipper low coming southward here. So let me draw this in so you can see it. Here's the next Arctic front very strongly. There's the next big high right here. And then we have a huge upper low situated. So it's pulling down the Arctic air very nicely. So that's as we time we get to February 12th. Now, in terms of the snowfall here for February 9th into the 10th, again, where's all the snow? Well, if you're in Richmond, no reason to really get excited here. There's Richmond right in here. This is Philly. Oh, you can see Philly's right in here. Atlantic City, Baltimore, D.C. That's a bit of a snow in here, and then a little bit on Cape Cod. So it's a few inches, 3, 4, 5, 6 inches of snow. It's snow, but it's not a big deal. Now, if the system were to drop further south, and Richmond could get more snow, it's not out of the question, but no reason to get excited over it. Now, as you go further out in time, let's take a look at this. This here are the teleconnections, the atmospheric indices of the pattern. We can see a very strong ridge on the west coast, the ridge on the west coast, which is identified as the P&A. So the ridge is very strong in February, and look what happens. It collapses by the time we get to the February 15th or 16th. The NEO stays generally positive, though not all the way through. That's a little deceptive. The EPO is close to neutral. It drops down, goes up, drops down again, and so on and so forth. So going into the middle of the month, not a lot of great things to look positive about the pattern. The Arctic oscillation here, it drops down to being negative, as you can see right down to here. Okay, almost by February 16th, then it goes back towards neutral or positive again. Now that sort of shift where it crosses a line that often is an indication of a potential East Coast winter storm. So there is that. We do have the Arctic oscillation dropping the negative, then moving back towards positive. We saw that with the January 22nd and 23rd snowstorm. The Arctic oscillation had been negative for a prolonged period of time and then moved back towards neutral and positive during the storm. So that sometimes happens with East Coast storms. So maybe we have that working for us. Now, this is the European model. Again, this is yesterday's European run, last night's run. You can see the howling winds coming down here, and this is valid for, I guess, February 11th after the February 9th event. And you can see these just amazing amounts of winds. Very impressive. Look at this stuff coming south. Look at these isobars. Look at all the lines here. So there's a low here, here's a big Arctic high here, and we have really howling winds, tremendous lake effect snows coming, very impressive Arctic outbreak. And again, that purple stuff and that orange stuff, that's brutally cold air. So the snow line is way down by the Florida-Georgia border, but the air is just very impressively cold. Now, this is, again, yesterday's European model. This is February 6th, but you can see here, now this is valid for February 14th, and we can see the enormous Arctic high. Let me highlight it so you can see it. Look at this Arctic high right here. Probably should change the color of that, but look at 1040 millibars Arctic high, howling north winds, bringing it down, maybe lake effect, bay effect snow on there in Hampton Roads a little bit, maybe in Buzzards Bay, Cape Cod. Look at the Arctic air here. Can you believe this? Good googly moogly, folks. This is amazingly cold air. Now, if we look at the upper air pattern here, we can see there's the upper low driving the whole pattern over southeastern Canada, and here's the trough axis just like this. But what's happening on the west coast, look at the ridge. The ridge is being attacked here, and it's getting flat and it's falling apart here a little bit. So that's one of the reasons why I'm not certain that the February 15th to 16th event is going to be a big deal. Now, if we look at the European here, this is a regular European, not the high resolution. So again, this is the regular European model, which you can use, and you can see the ridge is very strong on the west coast at February 12th. And again, this is yesterday's European, and then it's still fairly strong on the European ensemble as well. And as a result, because the ridge is strong and it's pulling things down here, we can see that It comes down this way. There's the ridge very strongly, and we can see the flow coming straight out of Canada like this. Very pronounced. Look at the Arctic flow here, coming around this huge vortex. Very impressive polar vortex in that location. So the European model was showing that yesterday and showing it again today. And we can see the European model for day 7. Again, look at the Arctic air coming southward here, February 13th, the reinforcing front. Amazingly cold air coming southward, really brutal stuff. And again, but the ridge is still under attack, and that's going to be the problem for the snowstorm. Now, let's take a look at February 15th, 16th. Now, this is yesterday's European model, and we can see that the operational run, again, this is both the regular operational, not the high resolution, right here, regular European, as you can see, and then over here, there's the low, and here's the Arctic high, and the rain snow line, there's the white line. See the white line here? That's the rain snow line way down in Georgia. So this could look like a pretty decent snowstorm if the low is actually there, and the model supports that. There's this, but notice we don't have a big ridge here anymore. This is now under attack. We're getting energy coming in from the Pacific, and it's flattened this whole ridge. So we only have a little bit of ridge here. So this system stays kind of far to the south. So that's what the European model was showing yesterday. This would, screw New England if they're looking for big snow in there, but not for the Mid-Atlantic. And of course, if you look at the ensemble, this is the regular European ensemble. You can see a trough right here over the southeastern states. The ridge is under attack on the west coast, and there's some sort of low here over the southeast moving off the mid-Atlantic coast. Now, this is the regular European for Sunday afternoon. Let's take a look at this. Now, this is valid for Sunday, February 14th, a week from today. Now, what I want to point out here is here's your trough. There's your 50-50 low. There's your big upper low. It sits over southeastern Canada. And we call that the 50-50 low because it's at 50 degrees longitude and 50 degrees latitude. And here's the trough axis. So it's pulling down the Arctic air this way, brutally cold. Now, the energy coming in is coming in here, but the ridge is being knocked down flat. So as a result, how far south will this thing drop? We don't know that yet. That's the big issue. If that ridge on the west coast is stronger, you have a much bigger trough entering into the east coast and a much bigger east coast snowstorm. But we don't know that yet, so we're going to have to be careful here before we go hog wild. This is the GFS, and again, it's got a deep trough here over the east coast. There's the big low here over southeastern Canada pulling out cold air. But then this system there's the piece of energy we have to watch for February 15th or 16th, but the ridge here is not very strong, and that's going to be the problem. And the Canadian model is showing the same sort of thing. Again, the ridge is under attack on the west coast, and that means we don't know this big piece of energy coming in right here. We do not know how strong this feature is going to be. We just do not know how strong it's going to be. So that's what we have to watch out for. That's our main concern. Now, this is the European ensemble for Sunday afternoon. Now, here's the big Arctic high. Very impressive looking map. You think, okay, this looks like a snowstorm coming. Here's the Arctic high. Okay, 1040 millibars. Look at these howling north winds. Again, maybe Bay effect snows in Hampton Roads, in Chesapeake, Norfolk, the Delmarva. But here's the energy right here in the southwest. But look at the ridge. It's being destroyed. It's under attack here. We want to see a ridge do this, not this. This is completely wrong. So that piece, that's the energy we have to watch out for in the southeast, right, in the southwestern states. But the problem is that pattern is not turning out what we thought it's going to be. And in fact, if we look at February evening to February 15th, the Arctic high, and this is not a good sign for snowstorms, is here. And it looks like it's going to move off the coast. And the winds are turning southwest. There's a system developing, but we need the Arctic high to stay up here, not move off the southeast coast. And that's a problem. So it looks to me right now, this is more favoring a snow to rain situation. Now, if we look at the European ensemble, this is the European day 8. We can see the cold air very nicely here over the northeast. A lot of cold air here. The rain snow line is down this way. There's the low. And here's the Arctic high. It looks like a good setup. So whatever precipitation starts, it starts off as snow. But the problem is the high is going to move off the coast. You'll see that in just one second. There it is. This is the European operational run, and it's day 9 for February 16. Then you can see the rain snow line is up by the Shenandoah Valley and moving into New York City and central Pennsylvania. So the low is inland, and we're getting a south wind over New England. This is not a snowstorm looking map. It looks like starting off of snow going over to rain. It's good for the Appalachians. It's good for the Shenandoah Valley. This is the European ensemble. It's a little further to the south and east. It's a little colder, so that's good for snowstorm lovers, but it's not overpowering here. This is the GFS, same sort of thing. The rain snow line is fairly far to the north. The low does not look that impressive. By day 10, there's a little bit of a more organized low off the Virginia coast, North Carolina coast, but this may be too far out to see. So there's not a lot to be really excited about here with this. The GFS ensembles, it's got, you can see the plots. There's some sort of low along or just off the southeast coast, but it's not very impressive. And we have a high moving off the east coast, which implies south winds. So, again, we'll see what happens with this. There's no reason to be pessimistic about it, but there's no reason to be optimistic about it either. February 15th or 16th. Now, beyond that, February 24th into March 7th, here's the MJO right now. Let me get up my marker so you can see it. Now this here's the neutral circle, as you can see. Right now it's moved into phase 5 here on February 6th, right there. So this is a warm phase, and warm phase as we go through the rest of the month into March. Now if we look at the projections down the road, the European model by February 21st has the MJO, as you can see right here, into phase 7, almost into phase 8. Now, phase 8 and phase 1 in late February and March are quite stormy, so that's what we want to see if that's going to happen. Indeed, if we look at the European ensemble, the weekly and the monthly ones, and the Australians, we can see very nicely that it reaches phase 8 right here, as you can see, phase 8 and phase 1. And then the Australians actually have it fairly strong into phase 8 and phase 1 in late February and March. So that's a quite stormy looking pattern here. So let me show you. This is what it looks like for February. Now, if the MJO gets into phase 8 in late February, the tendency is for that to become a very stormy pattern with a huge amount of blocking, a negative NAO or Greenland block, a negative Arctic oscillation, a big ridge on the west coast, a big trough over the mid-Atlantic and the east coast. That's what that looks like typically in February. In March, it looks like this, which is also a pretty good pattern. Again, we'll have to see if it makes it to phase 8 and phase 1. The problem is, of course, that once you move into phase 1 in March, by the time you get to the end of the month, you're now in the warm phases again. So after this, if it moves into phase 1, you go to phase 2, phase 3 by the middle of March. That's it for the winter. That doesn't mean there won't be ever be cold again, there won't be any snow, but in terms of the big snowstorms or the weather patterns, going into mid to late March, going into phase 3 or phase 4, it's over. So that's what it looks like. Anyway, that's this week in weather. I'm your host, meteorologist DT from weatherist.com. I'll see you on the website and on the Facebook page.